Greetings, greetings, greetings. Today is January 14th, 2020, or 19 if you know better. The title of this lesson is called Ruwach Warfare, Be Not Entangled. And first and foremost, we want to recognize the authority of all authorities, the creator of creation, Yahuwah, and the instrumentation of his creation, Yahuwshuwa Ha'Mashiyach. And so, like I said, the name of this lesson is called Ruwach Warfare, Be Not Entangled. And within the last week or two really, there's been much tumult, I guess you can say, within the assembly. And so some of the brothers have been putting out various lessons and teachings regarding various aspects that have been touched on regarding the situations that would go on. And so this is really just no different. The Ruwach uses available vessels skilled in the word in order to communicate the thoughts of Yahuwah and Yahuwshuwa in this earth realm. And so, again, this is no different. So we're going to jump right into it. Ruwach Warfare, Be Not Entangled. And going to turn to 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. And we're going to start at verse 1. Okay. It says, "Thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Mashiach, Yahuwshuwa." So that grace, I just want to take a moment here, is that that unmerited favor. It is that unmerited favor that is bestowed upon a vessel who doesn't deserve it, but that then compels that vessel to give honor, praise, esteem to the one who was doing the bestowing of that unmerited favor, that that favor that was not deserved. So it is that grace, right? Thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Mashiach Yahuwshuwa. And the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men, who shall be able to teach others also. Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahuwshuwa Mashiach. And so let me go ahead in verse 4. "No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who hath chosen him to be a soldier." And so what I really want to focus in here is that we are indeed in a battle. We are indeed in a war. We are indeed engaged in Ruwach warfare, spiritual warfare, right? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Elohim to the pulling down of strongholds, right? So in this Ruwach warfare, what needs to happen is we must always remain at a place of hardened heart. We must be hardened through this warfare, because when we make ourselves vulnerable through the cares of this life, through by way of entangling ourselves into the things which cause distraction, we make ourselves vulnerable. That vulnerability creates a softness, where a pliability, where the adversary can then come in and touch your flesh. So we must endure hardness and be hardened like a good soldier. Because, and so just even in that, the hardness comes through the experiences that we incur in this earth, through the experiences that we incur going about our day-to-day lives and in every decision that we make. Now, thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier. There are going to be times, there are going to be situations where the adversary will pose and Yahuwah will allow to break you, to soften you up, to deter you, distract you, get you on a false course, false path. It is your responsibility to maintain that straight and narrow path, to maintain that relationship and alignment with Yahuwah through Yahuwshua by way of the Quadash Ruwach. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue and read verse 4 again. No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who hath chosen him to be a soldier. By your entanglements in this life, because we are to, Shaul said, I die daily. By your entanglements in this life, the adversary then has openings to make you stumble and fall, and therefore disqualifying you from the baraka of Yahuwah. So verse 5, and if a man also strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned, except he strive lawfully. Your crowning comes by way of your right operation in the Ruwach unto Elohim, and not by any way else. You cannot be crowned with the crown of life. You cannot be crowned with salvation, else you do it lawfully in the Ruwach by way of Yahuwshua. The husbandman that laboreth must be first partaker of the fruits. Consider what I say, and the master give the understanding in all things. I want you to understand here that the natural is patterned after the Ruwach, okay? So when we consider natural warfare, we must understand that in natural warfare, say there's a lot of conflicts and a lot of wars and rumors of wars happening even in this day and age. And so in these natural conflicts, you have one of the most, prominent ones to date at this time, Iran and America, okay? So in natural warfare, there's a few different things happening. And I just want to segue and back up here. Prior to what they're calling the New Year, members, brothers in the assembly were literally dropping bombs, okay? Dropping bombs, lesson and teaching back to back. And so it's not, it cannot be overstated that when you, even in natural warfare, you'll have times when one side is firing off while the other side is taking a step back and allowing the firing to go forward, right? And then when the side that's been firing off has to reload, that's when you'll see the other side begin to fire off their shots. And so this really is no different. It should have been no surprise that the adversary was going to come back hard when the reload happened. It is it's just how things work. And so when these things happen, I really want us to understand that we need to make sure that we are equipped, prepared. We need to make sure that we are standing firm in the rock so that the tink, 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 no arrows that are coming against you, no word that shall rise against you will prosper. All right. And so understanding that the natural is even patterned after the spirit, we must also understand that even in natural warfare, when you begin to form bonds and relationships with certain vessels, there are when these vessels go off into modern warfare, it must also be understood that that some of those vessels are not going to make it back. Okay. And it's not that we ought not to form those bonds. It's not that we ought not to create and allow those relationships to organically flourish and bloom and blossom into good fruit. No, forsake not the assemblings of yourselves. We are to know those who labor among us. So we need to be intertwined into each other's lives so that we can hold each other accountable and be accountable one unto another. But it must also be understood that all of those who go off into warfare are not going to make it back. And this is no different in that as we began to walk this set apart lifestyle, we must understand that everyone who is lined up with you may not be with you in the end, because the scriptures let us know very clearly that those who endure to the end shall be saved. This is not Christianity. It is not a once saved, always saved situation. There is no biblical doctrine that even supports that false ideology. This is not you say, you believe that Yahuwshua was raised from the dead and you shall be saved. That is a statement of fact. But there are underlying principles that need to also be followed, because that can't be true and then also no whoremonger, no liar, no adulterer, no fornicator will make it in. So we need to understand some things here. We need to understand that salvation is, as brother Paul stated, the name Yahuwshua, but at the same time there is a mode of conduct as a good soldier that we need to operate in, because I don't want to step ahead of myself, because just because you come in with the name does not solidify your standing in the kingdom. And we already know, and if you come in with a false name, Yahusha, Yahuwshua, definitely and explicitly Jesus, and any other false name, Yasha, whatever the name that you want to call, and make the false assumption through lack of understanding, through lack of knowledge, to be the son's name, we must understand that Yahuwshua is the name given among men whereby we must all be saved. And even Hosea 4:6, when you take it, when you read it in the English, sure, it just says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. But when you go into the Hebrew, what you clearly see there is my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. So then that brings an objectivity about the question, or the statement rather, that begs the question, what that lack of knowledge is being referred to. And when you scroll up into earlier on in that chapter, you realize that the knowledge being referred to is the knowledge of Elohim. That knowledge of Elohim is what sets us apart from all of those who just pick up this book and read and quote and whatsoever else have you. It is the knowledge of Elohim that brings about the salvation of Yahuwshua. And let's go ahead and turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I'm sorry. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Because as leaders, I want us to understand that, like what Shaul would tell Timothy, be not quick to be a teacher, because teachers incur the greater judgment. The front lines get hit straight away. So look, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air. Verse 27 is key. But I keep under my body and bring it into what? Subjection. Lest by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. He say by any means, because the adversary is going to attack those who bring forth the word by any means necessary. Understand that the word coming forth from ministers of the Bashura is first and foremost for them. It is out of that overflow that then it is brought forth into the assemblies. And so if the word coming out of your mouth, you are not subject to, then what's going to end up happening is the adversary is going to find an occasion to create a stumbling block for you to fall on, because you have to make that decision to stumble and fall. Just like Balaam could not rightfully curse the children of Yashrael, what he did was teach them to fall out of alignment with Yahuwah, so that Yahuwah could not barak them, because Yahuwah not gonna barak mess. If you not in alignment with the Ruwach, don't expect a baraka from Yahuwah. And that's not to say that the scripture is not accurate or true when it says that Yahuwah baraks that his baraka reigns on the just and the unjust. No, he's gonna have mercy on whom he'll have mercy on. But just don't expect no baraka when you ain't right, when you ain't living right, when you are complacent in your mess. Understand that that Elohim is not mocked, and whatsoever a man soweth, that and that only will he reap. So as leaders, I just want to kind of stamp that point in understanding that the things that come out of our mouths, we must first be partakers to fulfill the weight of that responsibility, whatsoever that it is, because otherwise we may therefore allow the adversary to come in and create a stumbling block that therefore we then get tripped up on, because we have entangled ourselves with the cares of this life. And going back to that other point, when those who do not come back from this Ruwach warfare, understand this. Stop being so emotionally attached to the cares of this world. Stop being so emotionally attached to even the people in this world. And here's why I say that. Because the adversary studies you. He studies your hangups. He studies and knows what is able to slip and trip you up. So if he is therefore allowed entry by a vessel who has made themselves available to him to come into your circle, your realm of influence, that he understands that you have entanglements therefore thereby into, it's going to be a light thing when they get sifted and taken away for you to follow off behind them. That'll be a light thing. Stop being entangled into the cares of this life, whatsoever, whosoever they may be. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 12. Matthew chapter 12. We're going to start at verse 46. While he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. But he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother, and who is my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand toward his disciples and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and my sister and my mother. A servant is not greater than his master. If Yahuwshuwa himself, when he walked in this earth, did not so have higher esteem or higher regard for his own mother, his own sister, and you can best equate that to brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties, cousins, best friends, whatever, than those who are doing the will of Yahuwah, then who are we to more closely esteem our wives, our sisters, our husbands, our uncles, cousins, fathers, whomsoever? Nay, negative. Because again, it is that entangling with the cares whatsoever, whosoever that they may be in this life, that draws us astray for them who has called us to be the good soldier. Know who your family is. Know those who labor among you. If somebody is coming to you with false accusations concerning a brother or a sister or whomsoever, and you've been laboring among them, check yourself when you give an ear to that kind of sorcery. Check yourself when you're giving ear to that kind of witchcraft, to those kinds of enchantments. And just to kind of segue there, understand that this isn't Disney, okay? Disney likes to trump up their subtle sorceries, subtle enchantments with grandiose, dramatic scenery. An enchantment is just merely this. It is a vessel being used by the adversary to create, and this isn't exclusive to this, but this is a type of enchantment, to create a false accusation regarding another vessel and using words thereby and enchanting those who are adhering to those words to then believe that false accusation when you know better. That's enchantment. That's witchcraft. That's sorcery. That's divination. Watch yourself. Because when you're moving in the Ruwach is going to make you aware of what's going on. Just like when that woman was trailing behind Shaul and flattering Shaul. What'd he do? After a couple days, he turned and cast that Ruwach out. Why? Because even flattery, you got to guard your gates. Even flattery will create enchantments to you to start pumping up your own head. And understand, pride comes surely before the fall. When you are prideful, you may that old adage, you can't see the forest from the trees, right? When you're in the forest, you may not recognize the thicket. When you're in pride, you may not recognize you might not necessarily recognize the pride that you're in. This is why it's important that we do that we do know those who labor amongst us, that we do assemble ourselves together. Because when you're walking with set apart ones, understand that the Ruwach is going to give you first the opportunity to check yourself. Okay? We have to govern and check our own selves. But understand, if you're incapable of checking you, then the Father himself is going to call in them guys. And when them guys come in, then it's going to be done. Because understand that the true set apart ones are not going to be complacent in sin. The true set apart ones are not going to be the true set apart ones are not going to pacify sorcery, enchantments, idolatry, fornications, all that in which distracts other set apart ones. So let me go ahead and continue on. Let's jump a chapter back and turn to Matthew 11. We're going to start at verse 37. Matthew. That doesn't have a 37. Give me 1 second here. I'm visiting. Yep. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, just visiting number 35. Pardon body. Maintenance coming to check up. So Matthew, let me find this real quick. Chapter 10. Matthew chapter 10, I'm sorry. Verse 37. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his stake and followeth after me is not worthy of me. Let me read that again. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. If you are so entangled into the cares of this life, where you are then putting your father, your mother, your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter, your auntie, your uncle, before the things of the kingdom, the Mashiach say, you're not worthy of me. You're not worthy of him. Nothing should come before kingdom ministry. Nothing should come before kingdom work. And I'm not saying that because the scriptures are clear. And I just want to, I like to do this so that, because I know how I think. And when I hear something, I'm instantly equating it to other scriptures, right? A man that can't rule his own house, how can he rule in the assemblies of Elohim? This is not contradictory. But what's to be clear and understood in this script is that if your wife or your husband is out of order, it is your responsibility to get them in order. Man, whomsoever you are, if your wife is out of order, it is your responsibility to get them in order. Wife, if your husband is out of order, it is your responsibility to live and walk in a Quadash lifestyle, because in your husband seeing that, who's to say then that he won't follow and after Yahuwah Elohim in that same Quadash lifestyle? Let's make sure we maintain order in the house. So this battle, this warfare is real, and we are not to entangle ourselves in the cares of this life, whatsoever, whomsoever that they may be. Now, let's turn again to, we're going to stay in Matthew chapter 19. We'll start at verse 29. And everyone that has forsaken houses or brethren or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. So let's break that down a little bit. It is through the forsaking of the things that entangle a man in this life that gives us the ability to receive the salvation that comes in the name Yahuwshua. Because understand, let's read the opposite. For everyone that does not forsake houses and brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands for his name's sake, shall not receive 100-fold and shall not inherit everlasting life. Unless you are willing to disentangle yourself with the cares of this life, expect not the salvation that comes in Yahuwshua. How can you? Because the ones that do, many shall be first, and the ones who thought that they should be first, they indeed will be last. So let's go ahead and I want to segue here too and say this, that unless we are willing to call out unrighteousness and boldly correct that situation, how can we be expected to receive the crown of life? How can we be expected to walk in alignment with the Ruwach of Yahuwshua when we are not also therefore willing to boldly cast out unrighteousness? Let's turn to Ephesians 5. Let's get some understanding on that. Ephesians 5, chapter 11. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. If your whomsoever that they may be, whether we dealing with family, whether we dealing with spouses, whether we dealing with things, subjective or objective, whatever that they may be, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. We are commanded, we are called thereby to reprove unrighteousness, to reprove the works of the flesh, to reprove the works of the adversary in operation in those who are laboring and or amongst us, because we certainly are not called to fellowship with that situation. Let's and I want to even say this, that we need to be swift in the lives of those who we communicate with to end the reproof of that unrighteousness. Why? Because there are lives at stake. And not only lives, but men, understand that you have generations within your loins. You have your children's children's children within your loins. And with that being stated, the decisions that you make today are going to reverberate to your children's children's children. The decisions that you make today are going to affect the generations that therefore come out of you. You have to be conscious and conscientious and a willing vessel, always whose steps are ordered by Elohim. Because your children are going to be affected by the decisions that you make today. Your grandchildren will be affected by every decision that you make today. Every decision that you make has ultimately and appropriately led you to where you are right now, present time. So moving forward, every decision that you make going forward will ultimately affect those who therefore come out of you. There is therefore no condemnation to them who are in Mashiach Yahuwshuwa. Understand that. So pick up your britches, and when you fail, when you fall, get up. As the righteous man rises 7 times, 77,000 times, and do the next right thing. Stop being in this pity party. Stop woe is men. Stop looking to others to validate your affliction. Stop looking to others to co-sign on your pity party. Cut that out. Dawid encouraged himself in Yahuwah. He encouraged himself in Elohim. If you ain't got nobody to pick you up, pick up your own self. Grow up. Let's turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Grow up in the Mashiach. When I was a child, I thought as a child. When I became an adult, I put off childish things. I put off things that children do. Yes, we are to be as children to enter into the kingdom of Elohim. Yes. But that's asking questions. That's making sure we understanding what we need to understand. That's not walking around, woe is me, pity partying it up, looking for somebody to validate our affliction. No, that's not what that means. It's time to grow up and put off the milk of this thing. It's time to eat some meat. Ain't you hungry? Chapter 15, verse 33 and 34. It reads, "Be not deceived, evil communications corrupt good manners. Awake to righteousness and sin not, for some have not the knowledge of Elohim. I speak this to your shame." So you're not going to be able to fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness and those who perform those works of darkness, because they have trouble even sleeping unless they cast witchcrafts and divinations and create stumbling blocks for the brethren. You're not going to be able to sit complacent, fellowshipping in that situation and not be tainted by those evil communications, because they do corrupt indeed good manners. Ain't you ever noticed when you sit amongst those who use profanity excessively, and now you feel yourself, even if you don't use profanity, you feel yourself being tugged and pulled into that direction? Or those you sit amongst fornicators, you sit amongst idolaters, you sit amongst them who perform the unfruitful works of darkness, you feel yourself being tugged and nudged and pulled in that direction. It's because evil communication corrupts good manners. Reprove the unfruitful works of darkness. Not be like them. We have to be set apart ones. Set yourself apart. Matter of fact, let's just turn right quick to Romans chapter 16. And this has been a script touched on often, but it cannot be overstated. And I'm not saying it's like you don't know, my dear brethren, but just to remind you. Romans 16:17. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. What are you even doing sitting and chopping with cats who create divisions, who create offenses contrary to the doctrine? Don't you know that evil communication corrupts good manners? This is why you bringing that roach bait into the camp. This is why you bringing that leaven into the camp, because you sitting in the oven with the bread. You sitting in the oven with that tainted doctrine, and now you take that and bring that to the brethren. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do it to yourself. Yahuwah is not mocked, and he's gonna check those aggressively who create stumbling blocks for the vessels he has called and chosen to be set apart in this walk. It is also therefore your responsibility to maintain this set apart lifestyle. It is also therefore your responsibility to maintain that alignment that is the Ruwach of Yahuwshuwa to Yahuwah, Elohim, because we all must in and of ourselves give an account on that day. So let's and what I was doing was referencing Galatians 6 and 9, a little leaveneth the whole lump. It just take a little bit of false doctrine to seep into the camp to draw the brothers away. Look at what happened recently. It just take a little bit. So it just takes a little bit of enchantments to cause people to trip up and slip up. But even in that, it's not the enchantress's fault or the enchanter's fault. It's not them who brought in the leaven. It is still your responsibility to cut off and reprove the unfruitful works of darkness. You can't cast your mistakes on nobody else. You got to own that thing. We must all stand in front of the judgment seat of Yahuwshuwa. So let's go back to Ephesians, back to chapter 5, so we can finish up in Ephesians. Chapter 5, and we're going to start again. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say in that part too, that to make sure that you're not letting anybody deceive you. And the only way to really make that statement true in your walk is by knowing the script. Because there are vessels out there who are very charismatic, who are very authoritative, And if you're not careful, their authority in the authority that they walk in, whose authority does not have to align with Yahuwshua, will be very what's that word? Will be very alluring, will be very attractive, will be very persuasive. But you have to know the script and have your own right relationship with Yahuwshua so that you're not carried away with every wind of doctrine, tossed to and fro. And that happens when we are unlearned. That happens when we are unrooted. That happens when we are unskilled in the word. This is why we all must study up in the word so that we can show ourselves approved. Now, let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 4. I mean, even how can two even walk together lest they be agreed? I just don't get it. You walking with cats who don't think like you, who don't rock like you rock, who don't share the same fundamental doctrines that you share. Or maybe even that's the problem. Y'all think alike. And this is why you was able to be carried off and carried astray into some false ideology, to some false understanding and tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. So 2 Timothy chapter 4, we're going to start at verse 1. I charge thee therefore before Elohim and the Master Yahuwshuwa Ha'Mashiyach, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. Preach the Bashura, preach the word, be instant in season and out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and doctrine. Brothers, preach the word, be instant in season and out of season, reprove, not be complacent with, rebuke, not cosign, exhort with all long suffering, be willing to labor in this word and doctrine. Study to know yourself approved so that you can be able to perform this act. Verse 3, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. The time is yet when you find vessels out here who will go and sit up under other vessels who preach that false doctrine, that easy going, the name don't matter, as long as you believing in the Son, it don't matter what you call them. What? Show me that in the script. There ain't a verse in there that say that. There ain't a verse in there that will co-sign that foolishness. That in itself is witchcraft. That in itself is you desiring to enchant other brothers and sisters into a false doctrine by way of crafty words, crafty speech. How can you make it into the kingdom of Yahuwah, into the kingdom of Elohim, if you ain't got the passport? Yahuwshua is your passport. That's what gives you the ability to transition into the kingdom of Elohim. You want to make it in there with just believing on any old kind of name, but yet you can't take the name you can't take just the doctrine to anybody, and then they say, well, who you talking about? And then what you gonna say? Any old name? No, you got to give that name. And what is that name? Yahuwshua. You know this, we know this. But yet you want to enchant the minds of the brothers and sisters to say you can believe any old thing, to say that you can believe on the Son without his name, and then still make it in. Ain't no script for that. So let's continue on. Verse 4. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth. They shall turn away their ears from Yahuwshuwa, from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. You can't take these fables, bring them to the people, and then expect, desire whatsoever them to be in the truth. Yahuwshuwa is the truth. You can't make it into the kingdom of Elohim unless you have the truth. And if Yahuwshuwa is the truth, show me a precept, show me a principle that allows you to take anything but the truth and enter into Yahuwshuwa. You can't. It's illogical. It don't make sense. Stop the foolishness. Stop presenting people this bashura, making themselves, exposing themselves, making themselves a prey so that the adversary can then trample on their vulnerability and set them up for failure. That is the judgment of Yahuwah through Yahuwshuwa. So let's keep going. Verse 5. But watch thou in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, make full reproof of thy ministry. And this is for Timothy and those like him and us who are laboring amongst the assembly to bring forth the bashura. There will be afflictions. We are to endure those afflictions, not as children who buckle and who fold under afflictions, but as the good soldier who endures hardness. Man up. Verse 6. For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. This is the mentality that the soldier must have in this Ruwach warfare. We don't know when our time is. And yes, we can be like Dawid. We can be like David. Elohim, give me the wisdom to number my days. I stand as a witness, Elohim, give me the wisdom to number my days. But I don't know when exact my time is up. We have to walk this thing out every single day. What you did yesterday will not give you the ability to make it into the kingdom today. Where's the precept for that? Moses. He didn't make it into the promised land, though he brought the children of Yashua out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, right? He brought all of them, hundreds of thousands of souls, out of the land of bondage. But because of that one act of indiscretion, when he smote the rock when he should have spoke to it, he did not make it into the king. He did not make it into the promised land. You don't know what will be the deciding factor of you entering into the kingdom of Elohim. You have to walk this thing out every single day. In the death, the burial, and the resurrection life of Yahuwshuwa. Because those who endure to the end shall be saved. Period. And don't think that you just walk in this thing. Don't think that, you know what, let's just turn right quick to Revelations 3. You don't have to turn here. I'm just going to read it. Revelations 3 verse 5. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment, and I will not blot out his name out of the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before the Malachim. Understand, what's the script say? And I will not blot out his name. Don't think that your name can't be blotted out because you no longer overcame. When you stop overcoming, you make yourself a prey to the adversary. And then let's just jump with me. And again, you don't have to jump with me, but if you so inclined, jump with me right quick to Hebrews chapter 6. Because when you make yourself a prey, the Father, he gonna give you over to that thing which you've made yourself a prey over. He's gonna give you over to the lust in which you have so sought after. Understand that. Understand that. Give me 2 shakes. So I'm gonna make a pit stop right here in Romans 1, verse 24. Wherefore Elohim also gave them up to uncleanness through their own lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. Yeah, we're speaking about a specific thing. We're speaking about a specific thing here, but the principle is still solid. The Father is going to give you up to your own lust. He's going to give you over to that thing which you have lusted after. And then you therefore make yourself available and a prey to be used by the adversary to then bring corruption and contamination, to bring that roach bait into the assemblies and corrupt other vessels. And here's what happens. Chapter 6, verse 4 of Hebrews. For it is impossible for those who, for it is impossible. Let's make sure we understand this word. For it is impossible, not unlikely, not perhaps maybe, not we'll see about it. It is impossible for those who were once enlightened and have tasted of the heavenly gift and were made partakers of the Quadash Ruwach, and have tasted the good word of Elohim and the powers of the world to come, if they shall fall away, to renew them again unto repentance, seeing they execute to themselves the Son of Yahuwah afresh and put him to an open shame. It's not unlikely, it's impossible. Watch your steps. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. Here's what, and I'm going to close with this. These are the words that a soldier that has not entangled himself, that has not been wrapped up in the cares of this life, that has overcame the adversary by the word of their testimony, and that they have loved not their lives unto death. These are the words that we want to hear. You don't have to turn here. I'm just kind of glancing. I'm just kind of breezing through Matthew 25. When it speak on and I'm just going to pick one here in verse 23. His master said unto him, well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy master. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Them the words that a good soldier wants to hear. Them the words that a good soldier will hear, barring they have not allowed the adversary to make a mock of the life that they are living right now. But there are other words that certain vessels will hear. And these words you want to be wary of. Let's turn to Matthew 7. These words, make no mistake about it. Whether you claiming and speaking the name of Yahuwah and Yahuwshuwa, that won't make a difference. Matthew 7, starting at verse 21. Not everyone that saith unto me, Master, Master, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Just because you claiming Adoni, Adoni, Master, Master, that's not finna qualify you to enter into the kingdom, no matter who so what you believe. Verse 22, many will say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied where? What? In thy name. They got the name. That don't necessarily qualify you. Just because you got the name? There's many cats out here walking with the name. Ain't living right. Corrupting them who are not trying, but walking a set apart life. Or at least attempting to anyway. Have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. You got to walk this thing out with fear and trembling. You got to walk this thing out understanding that every day is a once and for all. Every day is your opportunity to fulfill the will, to fulfill the mandate, the call, the purpose of Elohim in your life. Every day. Yesterday is gone. What are you doing for the kingdom of Elohim today? Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow got its own anxieties. Tomorrow's got its own situations that's coming. Focus in on today. You got mercy for today. So with that, I'm going to leave you all with those words. And whether you hear or forbear, I call heaven and earth to stand as a witness to these words today. Because when in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. In the name of our Father, Yahuwah, and our King, Yahuwshuwa, shalom.